Excellent. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a really incredible panel of experts here, and we're so excited to hear from all of you. Something that we learned really quickly as we started putting together our docuseries a few years ago is that there are incredible vendors all over the world who are doing such great work in the realm of sustainability in the wedding industry. And we have a lot of allies in this work. Even though you're all far away, it's really easy and quick to connect. And we hope that by gathering virtually like this, we'll be able to share ideas, share knowledge, and continue to support and inspire each other in this work. Because sometimes it can be lonely feeling too. And so being able to connect like this with this group is so amazing. Before we go too much further, I should introduce myself. I'm Bryan. I'm one of the co-founders of Sustainably Wed, an organization based in Victoria, BC, on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen people, the Songhees, Esquimalt, and Wasanich First Nations. And we're so happy to be here with all of you. We also have Chelsea, who is hidden her video right now, but she's managing the recording and all the logistics. And she's actually the brains behind Sustainably Wed. So there she is. So before we go too much further and we dive into our big topics for today, I'd love to go around and just do some introductions. Many of you have made a very awkward time work for this. This is the challenge of time zones. And so we really appreciate you for doing this. So maybe I'll just go around the room and if you can give us just a quick introduction to your organization, yourself and the work that you can do. And maybe I'll start with you, Michelle, because you're in the top of my screen here.
Great. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. So my name is Michelle. I am the founder of the Sustainable Wedding Alliance in the UK. We have just had our 4th birthday, so last week. We essentially are in existence to drive sustainability within the wedding industry. So that started out as the UK, but as you rightly have said, there are so many great people doing great things worldwide, and so have recently expanded to work with more businesses in Europe. We primarily work with businesses to try and embed sustainability within their day-to-day operations, but we also have an educational outreach program for couples as well, and we work with mainly the UK's directories and organisations that are in place already to ensure that the messaging that goes out to couples is consistent, which we think is super, super key.
Amazing. And you're a certified B Corp too.
We are, yes. We got our certification back in January this year, so nearly a full year in, after a good old 18 months worth of preparation. We truly do practice what we preach. We also, I think, the first organisation to develop a sustainable standard for the wedding industry. So we have put together, in a similar sort of way to B Corp, things that we feel as though are really important that a business should be meeting in terms of environmental and social standards. That is specific to our industry because, as we know, the wedding industry is different from the events industry, different from the hospitality industry, different to many other sectors. So it was really important to us that we had something that was understandable from everyone, from an individual sole trader all the way up to sort of large multinational venue groups.
Amazing. That's a huge amount of work. I'm excited to hear more about all of that as we go here. Ashleyn, you're next on my screen here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashleyn. I'm the founder of Luum Collective. We're a Minneapolis-based event design agency cultivating conversations in our local community around sustainability and social good in the event industry. So we work on sustainability education events. We have resources for vendors across the Midwest, from Chicago to Minneapolis. We also offer consulting for venues and caterers to improve sustainability within their businesses. And we have plenty of free resources, an annual event, and a directory of vendors for couples in our region to support them on their own journeys to a more sustainable wedding.
That's super cool. I love all of that. That's quite the breadth of work. Susan, you're next on my screen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan, and I own a vintage party rental company here in the Seattle area. That's my personal passion for sustainability and weddings and events. And I'm one of the co-founders of an organization called Emerald Hour. And we were formed 2 years ago in hopes of supporting other wedding vendors to make their businesses more sustainable, help them create more sustainable weddings for their couples. And we've also have an outreach event every year. We do a sustainable wedding show to hopefully inspire couples and just help them learn about what's possible with sustainable weddings. We just find that, as we all know, there's so much waste in the wedding industry, and it doesn't have to be that way, but people just don't know. And vendors don't even always know what to do. And so we just are trying to build a community here in the Pacific Northwest, in the whole Seattle area, to help support the vendors and then also reach out to couples and help them.
Amazing. It makes sense that you own the vintage party rental company. Just given your backdrop, although, is that your workspace, or does your house just look that good?
It's my workspace.
Okay.
It's all around me in this room I'm sitting in. It's in my house.
Amazing. It looks incredible. Thanks, Susan. Okay, welcome, Natasha.
Hello, so good to see everyone. So my name is Natasha, and I am based in Vancouver, BC, on the beautiful lands and territories of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh peoples, for which I'm really grateful to live, work, and play. I've been in the events industry for over 15 years now, and I've had my business called Clearwater Events for just over 7. And I feel fortunate that I get a chance to work with couples on their special days and a lot of community impact organizations that are doing really good work. I also founded a sustainable wedding show pre-COVID, and an online community for sustainable event professionals many years ago, and I've been having this conversation into the ether for what feels like a long time before more people have joined the fold, and it's become more of a community, which is amazing, and I'm so happy to see.
We appreciate you for starting that journey here in this neighborhood, Natasha. It's amazing, and the Good Green has definitely been an inspiration for us as well. So thank you for that. Okay, I want to dig into our questions here, and one of the reasons that we decided to gather this group is because, I mean, honestly, it's been a bit of a tough year for climate activism. Certainly scientists say that 2024 is on track to be the warmest year on record. And every time you open the news, it looks like governments around the world are maybe not going to hit the climate targets they set, or maybe they're abandoning them altogether. I recently saw a study in the UK by Deloitte that showed that over half of respondents said that there's a growing fatigue around sustainability, that they're either not interested in it, that they don't have enough information, or that it's just something they consider to be too expensive for them to really commit to. And so within this landscape, which can be very depressing, we have a big task within the wedding industry, right? And so I want to start by asking all of you, because you've been working in this space for a long time, are we actually moving the dial? Are you seeing change or disruption or progress in the wedding industry towards a more sustainable industry? Is the work that you are doing, are you seeing that impact, and how are you measuring that impact? Again, big question, but hopefully we can dig into that a little bit. And again, maybe Michelle, I'll start with you again this time. And are we moving the dial?
For sure. I feel like we all are moving the dial, maybe in different ways. And I think that it's really important that you mentioned, how are we measuring things? And I think that there's so much of it that is unmeasurable. So, we talk so much with the businesses that we work with about the ripple effect. the impact that they have way beyond their awareness. So, working to really put sustainability at the heart of what they're doing within their business. Even, when you don't even look at the weddings that they're producing and you just look at how they're running their business, and really putting those values at the heart of their business and how that impacts their team, their couples, their suppliers, the vendor network. These ripples that they aren't necessarily seeing, but are really making people become more aware of their own actions, whether that is their own personal actions or within their organizations. Like, I feel from our perspective, we've certainly seen a growth in the number of businesses that we've worked with. So, going through the years, it was it felt very niche, 4 or 5 years ago. I have been in this industry 20 years. I have been focused on sustainability for 10 of those years, and I really, really struggled to find vendors that were like-minded 10 years ago. Whereas now I can absolutely, off the top of my head, name 5 flower farmers and florists in a specific area in the UK. And so that says to me that even if we're not working with them, they're in existence, they're conscious of their impact, but they're also huge advocates of sustainability. And within the wedding industry, it's become a core value of so many businesses. I think that COVID allowed us to really take stock of what we were doing in our businesses. Those people that really weren't invested in what they were doing or loved what they were doing left because it was easier to leave than to stay. And I think we're now left with these businesses that really do have a connection to what they do, really do believe in what they do. And because of that, the sustainability and the core values really shine through, and they want to collaborate, they want to share best practice. And we have now become, certainly we see in the UK, collaboration over competition. We're very much more likely to want to help each other and work together to have a better outcome. And, for us, that looks at sustainability. And, it is such a core part of what we're doing, but also what we're seeing as a general mainstream growth in the industry.
Amazing. I started with some very depressing facts and you made them inspiring already.
Good. I've spent 4 years perfecting that, so that's good.
Excellent. Susan, do you find that the same thing is happening in the Pacific Northwest around Seattle?
Yes, we find a couple of things. We were talking about this. We have sort of a committee that we meet regularly and we talk about some things. So it used to just be the co-founders and now we have a committee. So it's nice to have more brain power, more thoughts and insights in our group. So what we were talking about was something similar to what Michelle was just saying. Knowing so many vendors in our area that we could partner with, that we could refer couples to, it just makes it feels so powerful to know and trust these people and to know that what they're doing is aligned with our values and our priorities. And so it's like a very comforting feeling, and it feels also very strong, which I just love, because otherwise we just get really depressed by Bryan's statistics, right? Because it is depressing, it's daunting, right? And we just, to be able to connect with other vendors to support each other and work together for our couples is a great feeling. Something we're seeing here in the Pacific Northwest, we feel like there's a lot more of the micro weddings. I know they're called a lot of things. We tend to call them micro weddings. There's also a lot of adventure elopements here in the Seattle area. So those lower guest counts we're seeing, we feel like that's kind of shifting the whole scenario of weddings in this area. And the other thing is we have a lot of support for local flower farmers. It's a huge part of what we're doing here, that we're just so thankful for these wonderful, dedicated people who are working so hard to create these beautiful flowers. We have a great growing season here in the Pacific Northwest. And so we like highlighting that for our couples. It's been really inspiring to show them what's possible. You don't have to fly flowers from South America to Seattle to have beautiful flowers at your wedding. You can literally get them from a farm that's 5 miles away. And we love that.
Amazing. That's so cool. It's incredible to be able to highlight the local experiences, the local ingredients, the local vendors. It just makes so much sense when you're gathering people together. That being able to do that is such a huge advantage. Ashleyn, I don't know anything about growing flowers in Minneapolis or the Chicago area. That might be very different there. But let me start with, is the dial moving in your area?
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I would be happy to talk about our local flower scene later on because it is surprisingly incredible. So I'm very excited about that aspect that we have to offer in the Midwest. But I think similar to Michelle and Susan, I am definitely seeing movement and momentum over the last 5+ years of being and working in this space. I think newer industry professionals are entering the industry and they're not afraid to shift away from the way things used to be done or the way things always have been done. I think the older event professionals feel a little bit stuck in, well, we can't make changes because of this or because of this. But younger, newer industry professionals are saying, well, why not? Like, I'm seeing this food waste or I'm seeing this issue. Why not me tackle that? And so I'm feeling a lot more shift in just how we see our roles. And I think another thing that's been really exciting for me is I've been seeing a lot of shifts in sustainability in the mainstream media and magazines. In my local community, I've been asked and quoted in Minnesota Bride and Meet Minneapolis. So I think people are talking about sustainability on a mainstream level, and it's starting to trickle down into all aspects of our lives, whether it's our personal life and moving into and across many industries. And finally, I think wedding and events are becoming the next topic of conversation around sustainability. So I think people are practicing that in their daily lives and then not seeing it as crunchy or less than, but seeing how beautiful vendors can make their weddings and events as sustainable as possible. And all of us here, I think, are a testament to the beauty of sustainability. And so it's really exciting to see those shifts away from the myths of sustainability. And I'm seeing a lot more clients asking for it. I think maybe they don't always know exactly how to do it, which is why they rely on vendors. But I do think they're always asking, and the more vendors are asking of each other, what are you doing around sustainability? My couple really cares about it. I think the more that we can influence, to Michelle's point, and ripple across based on just kind of how we operate and how we're asking questions. So I'm really feeling optimistic, even though I do feel like there's so much more work to be done, but there always will be. So
I love that point that, we don't exist in a vacuum, and the more that this conversation happens in other industries, in other areas of our lives, the more it filters into weddings. I think that's so cool, and I love that kind of measurement of being interviewed by a magazine or a paper. And I don't know about everybody else on the call, but certainly we see whenever anyone on this call or any of our kind of network is featured and talking about sustainability in the wedding industry, it feels like a huge win for everyone, and we're always like, yay, it's so exciting to see. Even if it's on the other side of the world, it's a win for the entire industry. We appreciate it when anyone is having any of those conversations that gets this message out more broadly. Okay, Natasha, how are you feeling? Are we moving the dial?
I think so. I mean, my colleagues here have spoken so eloquently with so many practical things and lots of inspiration and hope. And I think from where we were 5 years ago, we've come so far. We talk about this new baseline of industry professionals coming in, and there's like this excitement and like not needing to go with the status quo anymore, which is amazing. And there's a new baseline for couples too, right? They're living these more sustainable, more minimalist lifestyles. And so they're coming into their planning experience with this desire to have more mindfully curated weddings. And that's awesome. I think way back when I used to start these conversations, it used to be this big thing where like sustainability was this big dark cloud, that it was all or nothing. And this conversation was in absolutes. And I think now we sort of warmed the soil where the conversation is really, we don't need to do all the things all at once. Let's just do baby steps that are then things that we can leverage year over year. We can continue to use those as building blocks. And so the shift in that conversation has been really positive. And the fact that we have vendors that we can recommend on a consistent basis now and know that they align with our values, their practices are similar, is great. So it's so positive to see the movement and how much impact that we're making, not just here locally, but on a global scale as well.
I love the idea that we've warmed the soil. That's a really cool analogy for this. That may just be the title of this whole conversation. That's very cool. But also, I mean, I think everybody touched on it, that other vendors are doing similar things, and we have a network now of vendors that we can refer to. And I think part of that too is that vendors are making their values more clear, and so it's easier to be able to recommend them. I think generally consensus is that there's a lot to be optimistic about, and that this conversation is happening, largely thanks to the work of the four of you on this call. This conversation is happening globally, as well as the colleagues who weren't able to make it today. And I should give a shout out to Rita at the Sustainable Floristry Network, who was hoping to join us today, couldn't make it work. Same with Kat at Mindfully Wed, both in Australia, as well as Beth at Altered. All were hoping to make it today, but couldn't make the timing work. So we do have more colleagues around the world as well, and we hope to connect with them soon. But what I'm interested in now, we've kind of talked bigger picture. I'm interested in what are the specific things that are working well in your areas, specifically as things that maybe other sustainable event organizers or professionals could learn from and implement in their own areas. Are there specific things that you're doing or that your organization is doing that really are helping? And maybe, Susan, can I start with you? Are there things that Emerald Hour is doing that you think are really making a difference or helping vendors or couples?
I think that that we're almost 2 years old. And so that's what we're really still trying to figure out. We're constantly asking our members, what do you want to learn about? How could we help you? So it's a slow process. I too like Natasha's analogy of warming the soil, because I feel like that's what we've been doing. We're kind of like a flower farmer, like we're throwing some seeds out. We're kind of seeing what germinates. I think for us, it's we're very supportive of like our floral designer members, like really emphasizing the no foam, no floral foam movement. We're planning to have like a speaker in the coming year to talk more about that. A lot of our members, it's kind of a funny thing. You're kind of preaching to the choir sometimes, because a lot of our members, they already are doing no foam, but not all of them are. Some of them care about sustainability, but they haven't quite figured out how to have more sustainable practices in their craft or in their business in general. So we've offered things like leave no trace training. We had a training from an organization called We Are Neutral about how to make your business carbon neutral. So we've tried to offer a lot of online Zoom classes, in this kind of a format. And then we've also had in-person events for our members to try to learn more things. So we are a work in progress. I think that, I'll just leave it at that. We're a work in progress. We're still working on it.
I feel like, as Ashleyn said a little earlier, I think the work will be ongoing no matter where on this journey we are. So we're all a work in progress. But those are a couple of really tangible things to take away. I loved the Leave No Trace training. That was such a good idea. really cool, especially with a lot of the adventure elopements and that kind of thing going on in the Pacific Northwest. Very cool. Yeah, that's a really tangible action. How about in the UK, Michelle? Are there specific things that are working really well?
Yeah, definitely. We working so closely with businesses, we know that they're shifting their practices. In the similar way to Susan at Emerald Hour, we ask our members, what do you need to know? What is the missing gap? Like, how can we help you? And we run monthly training sessions. We have experts from all over the world coming and talking to people. But the real shift we've seen and the real point of difference has been last year we developed carbon literacy training, which is essentially, for anyone that hasn't come across it, is really explaining it's quite a hefty course. It's an 8 hours sitting, really confronting, the facts, the figures, the real life of what is going on, outside of what the media is portraying, outside of everything else. What are the scientists telling us? What is happening? What can it look like? And most importantly, what can you do as an individual, as a community, as an organization? It's not just about our businesses. It's about us as individuals. It's about that ripple. It's about how we talk about it and what actions we can take and how we can scale that. And for us, hosting that carbon literacy training, we have seen such a shift in the people that have attended that and then going back into their organisation and sharing that. We're very keen on a few members of an organisation attending that training and then them taking it back and then training their own teams, because it really embeds the learning for them. And it has really been a game changer in terms of base level understanding as to why we are so passionate about sustainability in this industry and the core of actually why we're doing what we do, and really trying to light the fire and get people excited about the possibilities as well. And the other thing, I have two things. The other thing that we have really seen gaining momentum is incentivizing couples. So we've worked really hard with businesses of all sizes to start to look at the language they use and how they engage with couples to try and encourage them to have more conscious weddings. So, we want to be really clear that sustainable weddings are weddings without compromise. They aren't more expensive. They don't need to be more complicated. There's not a style involved. All the myths that we need to dispel, it's really important we do that. And the way that we are seen to be getting most traction is through incentivizing couples. As an example, a venue we're working with is, and we've been running this for several years with them now. They have essentially a couple, when they decide to get married at their location, they are sent this beautiful document that essentially explains to them, if you make this choice or this choice, then it's a more sustainable choice, and you'll get some points, and those points add up. And we love the phrase in the UK, points mean prizes, and that's exactly what they get. And not only does it give the couples additional benefits, we never discount prices. We're always really transparent in the relationships that have been used to build these incentive programs, but it allows the organisation to connect with their local community, and it allows them to pass on those connections and educate couples as to what these better choices mean for both their wedding but also for the local community. And it is really, really something that we're putting a lot of time and energy into educating people as to how they can do this, whether they are an individual running a small business up to a large scale venue or venue group, because we see it gaining traction and we see it shifting the needle for sure.
That's incredible. And I imagine that vendors who have taken your carbon literacy training have more tools and better language to be able to speak with their couples about the difference that they can make.
Yeah.
And I should ask as well, it doesn't have to be a UK-based vendor to take the carbon literacy training. right? And you don't have to be a member. Anyone can take it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've really been really clear. It's for wedding professionals worldwide. So the examples we use are non-specific. They are very wedding based. You know, we talk about how, you know, all couples want to hear the same things. You know, there is nuances, obviously, depending on language, but actually fundamentally the way you break it down and the way we talk to people is the same. And so we're really specific, and we've had people from all over the world do the training. We break it up so it can be done across, you know, 4 2-hour sessions so people can join in different time zones. We have in-person sessions so venues can get all their local vendors together and we can run it in person, which, you know, really having everybody in one room together, you know, as everyone on the call knows, those personal events can, you know, make such a big impact. So yeah, we try to ensure that it's available to people to tap into the best way for them.
Amazing. And one of the things I really love about that is, you know, you mentioned earlier, Michelle, that the wedding industry is unique. It's not the same as the hospitality industry. It's not the same as the event industry. But there are very few resources that are wedding specific. And so being able to speak to vendors about examples that are actually examples that they'll encounter, or to speak to couples about the things that they are actually dealing with right now as they're planning their event, is unique. And so I love the carbon literacy training for that, the carbon footprint calculator that Mindfully Wed created a little while ago. These very specific wedding industry tools, I think, help us all have those conversations in a much more productive way, for sure. Natasha, I don't want to leave you to last again here. What do you feel is working in our neighborhood?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of in a unique spot where I'm an independent planner, but there's so many great communities and networks that are happening. And so for me, I think my role has shifted a little bit into more of that connector and that person that can just connect different professionals and different networks with other people, because we can learn so many best practices from other organizations despite where they're located. And so that's been a big thing for me. And again, I think people are just more open to having this conversation, right? So I may go into a venue that I work with a number of times now when they sort of build a program around sustainability. And because I've been there, they know, they trust me, and we can take better steps to make their venue more sustainable, more accessible, and all of those things. So for me, I've really tried to deeply integrate into our community and then support other local vendors in making those changes, because ultimately we can't do our work as planners without everybody else on board doing the same thing.
Right, so those personal connections and that kind of foundation of trust is really important. Amazing. Ashleyn, how about in the Midwest? What's working well?
I think Natasha said it really well, is like tapping into the resources and the communities right around you. So for example, looking into the values of our local community has been really helpful for me. So we have a strong agriculture community and local food scene. So it's been really easy for me to tap into nonprofits in the food system and connect them with caterers and really start to build those relationships so that you don't have to be the expert in everything, but tapping into what's around you and what's already exciting, what's already a cultural value. And so local food, for example, many caterers are very willing or already incorporating local food and seasonal choices into their menus because it's a value of our community. Similarly with flowers, I know I had mentioned earlier, you'd be surprised. We have tons of urban and rural flower farms because of our strong agricultural community. Growing flowers is really popular, making it a lot easier for florists to tap into what's happening locally. We have a really beautiful wholesaler in our region called the Twin Cities Flower Exchange, and they're exclusively dedicated to wholesale flowers. So kind of tapping into those experts in their area and amplifying and lifting them up and making them more visible has been like hugely successful for our region. Is like, who's doing the work and how do we just, amplify it? And then another thing that's been really successful is tapping into government and city resources. So I've gotten really involved outside of the wedding industry in what is my local government doing around sustainability. So I'm part of a food council, the city food council. And one of their pillars is all about reducing waste. And so I've been able to bring the issues and the challenges within the event industry to this larger community and say, like, can you help us solve this problem? What resources are available? And actually, I've found that there's a lot of government programs and investment for businesses around waste management or minimizing plastic. And I've been able to connect our local industry with these government resources because, like you had said, the wedding industry sometimes gets really siloed and we're like only thinking about weddings and each other and not really looking at the broader space of what's happening and what resources are available to help us. And so I love to be that person that's like, well, hey, did you know about this? It's already happening. Let's connect with them. And I think building that and integrating more with what's happening in our community has been incredibly successful in making people feel supported and also able to make those investments in composting or changing their processes because the government is investing in them and helping fiscally so that they can make that change, because sometimes that can be really daunting. And so we've been really grateful and lucky that we have a community and a culture that is investing in sustainability, and like, how can we connect those resources?
Incredible. That's such huge work and such important work to be able to connect with the local government and it's great that we have allies within our community to be able to have these conversations, but we also have allies within other industries and at the local government level who want to be able to support us. And often, as you say, that the wedding industry is siloed. And certainly in our area at the moment, there's not one organization or one vendor that local government can connect to say, hey, what do you need? How do we make your life easier? It's challenging for that conversation to happen. So the fact that you're making those conversations happen is incredible. That's amazing. I know, Natasha, we've talked about that before, where we've been at a venue and they don't have recycling, they don't have compost, but that's because it's a municipal or a city property, and they just didn't put those in. You have to have those conversations at that level sometime, and so that's incredible. Okay, so there's a lot of good things happening in the wedding industry. I think there's a lot to be positive about and a lot of really actionable things that groups around the world can do. I want to ask what's not working. Where are you encountering roadblocks? Where are headaches happening? What's just not working about changing the industry, and where do we need to redirect our energy maybe? And maybe I'll start with you, Natasha. What's not working in the Vancouver area that either we can address globally or we need to look differently at?
Yeah, I think the pain points that I've been having are things that we've mentioned on this call. So I think, for one, there's not really an industry standard here in Canada. So all the metrics and all the things that we're doing are out of goodwill and because we all want to create change as individual vendors and as a community of event professionals. But there's no overarching body, there's no formal resource or association that can support with that. And so it's been really challenging to sort of have a level playing field around things to attain to or metrics that we're looking for or what are our big goals as a community. And so I think that's one thing. And also to Ashleyn's point earlier around better city infrastructure. So there's obviously goals within different municipalities and different districts, but within the region, they could be so different and so varied depending on what those different priorities are. And so for me, I think it's been challenging to tap into all of those different little community neighborhoods and figure out exactly what is acceptable in those regions. So for example, like even here in Victoria, connecting with other vendors that work with waste management and recycling and seeing, okay, like in this community, do you know what I need, what I can recycle, what is compostable? Like I don't even know anymore because things are changing. It's not easily accessible, that knowledge per se, unless you have a connection within government. And then I would say, like, on a higher level, as much as I'm a foodie and I love working with our caterers, and so many of them are lovely, I do think the Food Donor Encouragement Act, at least here in BC, can prove a little challenging at times because of the way that it's structured and the way that catering companies and organizations are allowed to donate food, even though there should be no liability across the board. And we try and put all the measures in place to make sure that that is a safe process for everyone. I think there's still a lot of worry and uncertainty around what that looks like if something goes wrong, who becomes liable in these situations, and of course nobody wants to take that on. So hearing situations like Ashleyn, that things are working really well in her city and her community, I think gives us a lot of great opportunity for like future collaboration.
Amazing, yes. And just to clarify for any kind of global listeners, here in BC, it can be very challenging to donate food after an event. Anything that's kind of hit the buffet or anything that could potentially be at risk needs to be thrown out. It cannot be donated, even if it is very low risk. So yeah, that can be very challenging and very upsetting to see enormous platters going straight into the garbage. Yeah. Susan, how about around the Seattle area? I know Emerald Hour being just a couple of years old, you've probably hit some pain points already. What are those headaches you're encountering?
Yeah, we were talking recently in our meeting about three things. One of them is kind of ironic to me. A lot of us see that it's actually like what you might call like lower budget or DIY weddings that actually are creating the most waste, because I would have thought, oh, it's the big over the top ones, with the extravagant florals and everything. And that could definitely be. But what we're seeing with these low budget DIY type of weddings is people just, because they don't have a big budget, they're just spending money on cheap crap from Amazon. I'm just going to call them out. They just, Amazon makes it so easy and painless, right? On their end and for the couple. But then you end up with all these plastic cups, these single-use items that were very cheap. I've had it happen where I've had a couple and they end up not wanting to rent some beautiful glassware from me because yes, they can get cheap plastic cups so much cheaper. And then they're going straight into the bin afterwards. They can't be recycled or anything. And even the compostable flatware and dishes and cups, that becomes a big issue because does the local area where the venue is, do they actually have the ability, the infrastructure to compost those items? Does the venue itself even have it set up? So there's so many questions even when you get into trying to use compostable dishes or whatever. So that's one thing. Another thing is we find that the couples need they need more help in understanding what's a realistic budget for what they want. And so to try to help them and support them, we have something that we developed called the Green Swaps Guide for couples. We have one for vendors too, but the one for couples, it gives them like the most impactful choices you could make to make your wedding more sustainable, or the most important questions to ask your vendors, things like that, just to help them know what they could do because they don't know and they don't know what's realistic. So we're trying to help them and support them in making choices that are informed. And then the third thing is that we really wish that we could all give our couples more inspiration. We joke about that we want to flood Pinterest with beautiful images of truly sustainable weddings. And so we just need to keep trying to churn out that content, right? To give them a vision of what is possible. And so those are some things that we feel like we could be pushing forward and improving on in our area, and that would hopefully impact the industry as a whole too.
I love that. And I love the Green Swaps Guide for a start. But I also love, those pain points, I think pretty accurately map onto the pain points that couples experience as well, in that they get thrown into planning this giant event that they don't know anything about. There's a whole bunch of pressure from everybody, but then there's pressure online, and they kind of go there for inspiration, and then there's budget pressure, and so they go to Amazon to solve that problem, right? And so I think that those pain points are very much related to the pain points that couples experience, for sure. Yeah. What about in the Midwest, Ashleyn? What are those pain points you're experiencing?
Yeah, I think I can echo a lot of what's already been said. I think Pinterest is a really big disservice to the wedding industry, not just from a sustainability standpoint, but from a realistic standpoint. I think as wedding vendors, we are a part of that, where we push out content that pressures individuals and couples to feel like they have to have a lot of stuff and a lot of big floral arrangements and just like a lot in order to have a beautiful and meaningful event. And I know all of us are really trying to get down to like, what is the true meaning of this gathering that we are creating and why are we doing it? And it's not about the stuff, it's about the meaning making. But I think as a whole, the wedding industry really just needs to shift away from this over-consumption and trend-based approach. I think similar to fashion, we really need to get to this place of like, how do we design weddings for the couple, not for the trend of that year? And really just encourage them, like, how do you make this about you and your personality, not what like color of the year it is? Even though we all love that, like, I know that I fall into that, like new inspiration, all these things, but I think that actually puts us in a really bad position, even as vendors, to like constantly be hustling and creating, which is not sustainable in its own way. So I think the industry as a whole is just moving too fast. Another thing that I really see as a big opportunity is waste management from every vendor. I think waste is the least glamorous part of our jobs. We love all the other parts, but when it comes down to the 1 a.m. cleanup, everybody's like, oh, not my responsibility, not my responsibility. So whose responsibility is it? And I think we need to really talk about that earlier on in the process of like, what is the venue's role? What is the caterer's role? What is the planner's role? Because there's waste at every point, and really thinking about whose responsibility is it? And it doesn't all fall on one person. Like, every vendor is responsible, and it's in their own right and in their own way, and the couple too. So I think talking about Amazon, like, are there things that we could do to decentivize bringing in lots of garbage into a wedding of like, actually, this is incredibly wasteful and we have extra trash charges because of all this junk that we're bringing in, just to like shift the way we think. I don't know what the answer is, but I think waste is like, no one wants to talk about it and no one wants to address it because they don't want to be the one responsible. So how do we, all take responsibility? And then ultimately, I'd love to see more government and citywide support, because I think people don't take the wedding industry seriously. And it's such a big, impactful industry that I wish we were more visible to the places and the people that had the financial and infrastructural support to help make this more sustainable. I can't tell you the number of times that I've, talked to city officials and they're like, oh, the event industry is like not that wasteful compared to construction or this. And I'm like, no, actually it really is. And there's so many opportunities for waste, food rescue, but we need your support. We can't just do it one-off by ourselves. as individual passionate vendors. So I think it's really pushing our agenda and our ideas to a wider audience and really bringing more people in to see the value and the impact that we can have when we make these small changes, and that everybody plays a role and is responsible in their own small ways. That way it's not all falling on one person or one vendor.
Yeah, I mean, that advocacy piece is so key, isn't it? And being able to speak as an industry, as a wedding industry. You're right, we do get kind of brushed off a lot, either as, sort of superfluous, or, oh, it doesn't really make that big. It's like it's one day, it's not that big a deal, right? And but yeah, I mean, that having those conversations at that higher level is so key. And you're right, waste is not romantic at all, but so key, right? And I mean, we were talking about that leave no trace training, which I think makes, when you think of that, it's very much like hiking in the mountains. You don't want to leave anything behind, but how do we apply that to hosting an event at a hotel? How do we leave no trace there too? I think that would be key, but I don't know if this will show up in the recording. I don't know how it'll show all our things. But when you said that Pinterest is doing a disservice to the industry, I think I've never seen 4 people nod so hard. We were all like, yes. So yeah, I think we're all on the same page there. Michelle, I know you've actually had a little more luck speaking to government in the UK, and maybe we can touch on that. But pain points. What are the pain points and the headaches in the UK right now?
Yeah, I echo what everyone is saying. Is that using an excuse for it's just one day. For overconsumption it just has to stop, and there needs to be an understanding from people that in our day-to-day lives we have to stop consuming in the way that we do, and this it's great to see it becoming there's lots of streaming platforms that have got lots of documentaries going out at the moment talking about overconsumption, perfectly timed for the festive season, because actually in our day-to-day lives we've become so obsessed by consuming single use convenience, and that has naturally just rolled into us playing out a wedding day and using the excuse of it's just one day. It's only one day. But it's one day for every single individual that's getting married. And in the UK, that's, 300,000 people a year. And that's just the UK. And that's an obscene amount of waste. We actually call it getting rid of the unnecessaries. And we talk a lot to couples about, you need to go back to the core of your marriage, the unity of two people. You need to look at why you're doing what you're doing and actually what are people going to remember, and how do you want people to feel? Not do you want people to have, an individual bubble wand? Actually, how do you want people to feel? Because that's what we need to set trends on. That's, how, go back to seasonality, start talking about, what do you love as a couple? Is it outdoor walks? Is it cozying up by the fire? Okay, get married in the winter season, have a hot chocolate bar, have open roaring fires, and really get to the core of what it is about them as a couple that they want to bring to their wedding, and strip back all of the unnecessaries, because we just don't need them, and they're a waste of money, to Susan's point of the DIY weddings and, sort of people jumping on Amazon and, ordering things from all over the world to be shipped in plastic and, air freighted. It's absolutely unnecessary. And I think that, as wedding professionals and as, certainly from us as a perspective and alliance in the UK as a trade body, that's so key for us, is getting that message over to people that, the core of why you're getting married. Nobody got engaged and the first thing they did was went and bought bubble wands. That's not what you do. You celebrate with your friends and family. So that's what we're trying to really push hard on, and that's what I think we all need to do so much more on. And it is obviously, it's always going to be there. We're always going to have this consistent trend change, and trying to engage with the influencers that are sharing these trends and are, you know, heavily reposted on Pinterest, on Instagram, are, you know, the ones being listened to on podcast. It's really important that we, you know, I don't like the term infiltrate, but it is really important that we start to be present with these people. And they're the kind of people that we target to bring on carbon literacy training, because once you know, and you can't ignore it. And so it's trying to shift people's mindset so that what the imagery they are seeing is the more sustainable choices, but also the words they're hearing and the way they're feeling is naturally more conscious.
Incredible. I love that idea of tackling the influencer culture as well. I feel like that's such a key, is that we are fighting that battle, not just on Pinterest, but also on Instagram and also everywhere else. So, but sorry, I interrupted.
No, not at all. I was going to go back to the point of government. So yeah, as you mentioned, we've had some traction. So during the pandemic, we were in a position of not really having any form of trade body in the UK that the wedding industry was part of. It very much being quite separate, and, you know, our devolved nations also having quite different setups. So we were really in a great position that lots of organisations came together to form the Wedding Task Force in the UK and put out a census among businesses to kind of understand how many businesses were actually functioning as wedding businesses, how many vendors are there actually working in this area, both solely in weddings, but also then crossing over between, you know, events, weddings, hospitality, so that we could start to get a picture of what that looked like. And then we could start to also understand how much that was worth to the UK economy. And they've estimated it was worth 14.9 billion a year. And that makes government listen. So once you have the figure and you can start talking their language and you can talk GDP, and we can then also start saying, okay, well, we also have this tonnage as an industry, that is a percentage of the UK. So, you know, you need to kind of help us. If you have a net zero target as a government, then we form 5% of that. So you need to help us reduce that 5% so that then that can help you with your targets. So really understanding where we can leverage and the best way to do that to try and get a seat at the table. Because quite honestly, once you put us lot at the seat of the table with these people, we're not going to stop until we get to what we need to. So, you know, I think understanding what is going to make them listen and what is going to get them to take action is has been the sort of game changer for us in terms of government, both from a local level all the way up to central government.
That's so huge. I love that. And I love that it speaks to the sustainability of the industry as well. Like, these small businesses will not be around unless there is support and community and resources available. And being able to advocate on behalf of the industry makes us as vendors more sustainable in our livelihoods, right? So huge. I want to be really mindful of our time here, especially because it's the end of the day for some of you. Before I kind of close out here, are there any final thoughts, any words of wisdom or bits of advice that anybody wants to share here?
I have one. I want to give a shout out to Gen Z, because I think that they are going to help us with all of this. Because I think that all the evidence is showing that Gen Z really cares about the environment and the climate crisis. And I think by us being open about our values as individual business owners and as organizations and showing them what's possible, I think that they are passionate and they are hungry for it. And I think we can really partner with them and push this forward and truly shift all the things we're talking about. I mean, I'm old, I'm not on TikTok, you know, but like, they care, they're passionate, they're knowledgeable, and they're angry about, you know, what's happening to our world. And I think that they are a source of strength for us as an industry. And a lot of them are our target audience, or, you know, and clients. So I think there's a lot of hope and potential there.
Amazing. Such a good point. Michelle, did you want to jump in there too?
Yeah, I think we've all mentioned it at different points, and what I would just love to say is that I know there are so many amazing vendors and individuals doing so many wonderful things, but they're not shouting about it for fear of people pointing the finger, for being classed as greenwashers. And so they've gone the other way and they are doing these amazing things, but they're not talking about it. And what I would love to see is people sharing where they are at on their journey and just more transparency around that. I feel like the thing that we need to do most, and it's really, I love that Susan is, really excited for Gen Z coming into coming in as couples, because, they value authenticity, and, we really need to be showing everything we're doing, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think the more that becomes our natural pattern, and the more we talk about sustainability, and we move away from just showing the nice shiny things, and we do show what waste truly looks like at a wedding, and we show our journey on fixing that with a venue. I think that is really, really powerful, and all it does is build trust with our couples, being transparent and authentic about what we're doing, and I really, really want vendors to try to do more of that, because the more they do, the bigger the ripple, and the more trust they're going to build with couples, and, with their supplier networks as well. So for me, I think that, I would love to be sitting here in a year's time and, you say to me, what was the game changer? I want that to be, people just really just being super honest about what's working, what's not working on their socials, and not just showing the highlights reel. It'd be great to start seeing more of that.
Well, that sounds like a date. We'll check in a year from now, and ideally we'll have solved many of these issues. But although that said, I should say that this work is not fast either, and so I think all of us on the call here have seen that this is slow and incremental, and again, the soil is warm, but it takes a long time to plant things in that, and so we're still working, and a year from now we might not have solved everything, but hopefully we'll be well on the way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Michelle. I think even I find myself sometimes hesitating to share the imperfect moments, or the time where I thought I ordered all of the compostable thing, and then the vendor brings a ton of single-use plastic, and I'm just like, but I'm supposed to be the sustainable planner. And it's gonna happen. And the more that we can show that you don't have to be perfect in order to be impactful, I think is where the real progress can be made. So thank you, Michelle, for reminding us that we don't have to be perfect to be meaningful and impactful. And I think my biggest advice or hope would be that every vendor and couple gets curious, ask more questions, educate yourself, but also encourage other vendors to shift the way that they think about things. So I think if every person could just ask more questions, like, what are you doing around sustainability? How are you reducing waste? The more that we can show that people are thinking about this and that they care, and just simply being the person who asks can ripple across how people think and how they perceive. Because I think so many times we don't realize how much people actually do care about these things, because they're not talking about it, because they're afraid, or they might say the wrong thing. But I think just asking and putting it out there, even if you can't take every action, I think we can really make a ripple effect of conscious thought and cultural change.
I love that. And I would sort of further to that and say, this community here, I think we're proof that this community of sustainable wedding pros, we're collaborative, we're open, we want to have these conversations. And so be curious, ask those questions, and also lean on us. My DMs are always open. I want people to be excited to have these conversations and excited to make change. And so if there's ways that I think any of us can support in that, we would love to.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. We have messaged Natasha many times with questions. Anytime anything comes up, we're like, Natasha, what do we do? Well, again, I want to be mindful of our time here. I want to thank all of you for sharing your wisdom, your insight. As you all have said, having these conversations, having them out in the open and talking about this ideally does inspire other vendors. It gives some ideas, and hopefully we continue to move the dial. But in the meantime, we're just so inspired by the work that the four of you are doing, and the organizations that you work with. It's just incredible. It's really exciting to see, and I think that anytime we are a little bit depressed about the state of the climate or the world or the industry, we look to the four of you for inspiration, and it's always there. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I'm going to end our recording here, but we really appreciate you, and hopefully we can all check in on a global level again soon.
Recording stopped.
We're done. Thank you so much.
I quite want to just keep talking for hours.